Today is June 9th, 2012. It's the 100th anniversary of the Skinner Memorial Chapel down at the Congregational Church in downtown Holyoke. We're all gathered here at Wisteria Hearst, 115 strong, ranging in age from 91 to 2, coming from 23 states, all for the purpose of celebrating our heritage and getting to know each other in this generation and preserve the legacy and pass it on to the next generation.
Well, I was born here in Holyoke. My father was William Skinner, the second. Actually, he was christened the third, but he legally changed it to the second. And my mother's Margaret, and I was born here in Holyoke. We lived down the street here, corner of Appleton, and Cabot and Elm Street. And then that house was demolished, and my father built the house up on Northampton Street, called Dogwood, 1155 Northampton Street. So I moved there when I was about 8 or 10 until I was married.
I was named after my two grandmothers, Harriet and Catherine, Harriet Beecher and Catherine Skinner Kilbourne. I'm called Holly, so I'm Holly, maiden name Hudnut, married name Halliday.
My name is Robert Kilbourne Hudnut. I am Catherine Skinner's grandson.
I'm Libby Hubbard Cook. I come from the Elizabeth Skinner Hubbard family. My father was William Hubbard, married to Alice Louise Weber, who's also Holyoker. I had an older sister, Louise, just the two of us in the family.
My name is Bill Hudnut. I'm one of the remaining fourth generations. My mother was Elizabeth Allen Kilbourne Hudnut, and she married a person from Youngstown, Ohio named Hudnut. That's how we got our name. But my grandmother on my mother's side was Catherine Skinner Kilbourne, and her father was William Skinner. So I'm in the fourth generation coming down.
My name's Bill Skinner. My father was William Skinner that lived in Holyoke on Northampton Street. My grandfather was Joseph Skinner, who lived at the Orchards in South Hadley.
I am Betsy Stott, and I am a descendant of Libby Skinner Hubbard.
My name is Belle Skinner Kilbourne Taylor, and I'm the matriarch of the Catherine Skinner Kilbourne descendants, I guess you'd say.
My name is Joseph Skinner Logan. My grandfather was Joseph Allen Skinner, and my mother was Martha Skinner Logan, so that's where we fall in the family, I guess.
I lived in Holyoke with my parents. My father, William Hubbard, succeeded Joseph Skinner as treasurer of William Skinner and Sons. So I was born here, grew up here. Uncle William Skinner, would often come up in the summer, or did spend the summers here. My father would come down to see him about every Sunday night, and he would bring me often. We came through the servants' entrance then, I don't know, I never came in the front door.
My grandfather was Joseph, and he used to live down on Elm Street, and then he had the summer house out in South Hadley, and that became his full-time house. And so my father and we all went after church, we would go out there every Sunday for lunch. We would come here in this room to visit Uncle Will, who always sat right over there in the chair with his three-piece dark suit and the red tie and the red carnation. And the floors sounded just like they always have with the parquet floors walking in here.
The summer after my freshman year in seminary, after my 4 years at Princeton, I came here to learn how to write. And she made available my parents' room, which is at the head of the stairs, and it's the first room on the right, reserved for family. And I set up a desk and my typewriter there, and I was able to look out on this green space where we played the football games and presumably get inspiration from being here, looking out at the football game, getting competitive in my writing, and seeing the beautiful gardens that were kept up. And I was here for the entire summer.
I came here many times. The first time I came was with 3 of my brothers in 1937 after the flood on the Ohio River, which absolutely blitzed Cincinnati, where we lived. We lived in Glendale. We all got scarlet fever, and to get us away from all the germs and the mess, my parents brought me and my 2 brothers, Bob and Dave, up here in 1937. And that's the first time I remember being here. And anytime it seems as though when I got sick, whether it was in college or graduate school, I would come here to recuperate, and Grandma would give me her TLC, and people like Miss Clem and Fanny Hammond and Ada, they would all, and Charles, the chauffeur, they would all take care of us, give us rides, and we just incubated here for a while.
Yeah, lots of memories of coming here. We, as children, we used to play around here and use the elevator, and we had a detective kit that enabled us to fingerprint people, so we went around in the kitchen and the chauffeur and the gardeners, and we fingerprinted all of them. It was just great fun. Ben Kilborn and I were the same age, and we had a great deal of fun together.
My grandmother was, first of all, I think, very grateful to her father and mother. She was different than Auntie Bella and Will Skinner, my Uncle Will, great Uncle Will, who neither of them ever married. And William Skinner ran the business down in New York pretty much and was a prominent financier down there and banker and on the board of the Equitable Life Insurance Company and so forth. And Auntie Bella, basically we knew her as somebody who was philanthropically inclined. In subsequent years visited Athon-Châtel, which she helped to rebuild over in France after World War I. And my mother laid the cornerstone for Skinner Hall, which Auntie Bella donated to Vassar College. And then my grandmother was more of a family person. She had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. And she was a lovely, gracious woman, always very, very quiet, and she could giggle a lot. She enjoyed being kidded. But every morning in this room where we're sitting, she would invite the whole staff to come in, and she would have family prayers. And of course, if a grandson was here, he would be included. And so I went to many family prayers down here in the morning when she would try to turn on Billy Graham to get him for 15 minutes or so. Then she would read from a devotional and say the prayers, and then we'd be about the family's business for the day. You know, when we stayed here, we would always have breakfast and lunch in the parlor room, what was called the peacock room, because there were 2 Tiffany windows of peacocks decorating them, and another one of Oyster Bay or something like that, which is now down at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And often after breakfast or lunch, and Grandma would always say the family grace, which was, well, I'll have to think about it for not good food, good meat, let's God, let's eat. It was for what we're about to receive, make us truly thankful. Amen. She said that every single meal. And after the meal, often we would go from the peacock room into the music room, which fascinated us.
And I remember when we had the musical instruments here, and I remember going, and I think it was young Terry Kilborn who played the instruments, and I thought I remembered that because there were just all kinds of instruments, and I thought it was, and at first I thought it was very nervy of him to play these very old instruments, but he didn't seem to think that was too much at all.
Because some of Auntie Bella's memorabilia was there, like the Legion of Honor that she received, which was framed under glass. We were told that a spinet in the room had been played by Marie Antoinette, that there was an organ in the room that had been evidently gone back to the time of Johann Sebastian Bach. And most important of all to us as we were growing up, there was a Stradivarius hanging on the wall. And subsequently, that whole collection of musical instruments, which Andy Bella had accumulated from all over Europe, was given to Yale University. We would sleep upstairs and prowl around. One of my earliest memories of this house is the incredible shower in one of the rooms where the water not only came down on you but came out from the sides. And you know, for a little boy, that was really exciting. That was different. And there was a lot that's different here. And the grand staircase that led up to the bedrooms where we would sleep. I always slept in the, I guess it was Andy Bella's bedroom, I'm not sure. I think it was called the Japanese room.
In the days when I was in college and I would stay here, we had a night watchman that went through all the rooms in all the house. And it was reported that I had a man in the house, and I was ordered home immediately to Bedford, New York, where I was living. And they were very disappointed in the way I had acted.
My mother and my grandmother were at one end, and I think my Uncle Stuart and my Uncle Billy were at the other end. You know, Grandma Kilbourne and her 3 children. And then around the sides were 2 or 3 generations of Hudnuts and Kilbournes, basically. And we just had a good old time, as I said, playing touch football out on the yard, enjoying the family, enjoying the good food, appreciating the heritage of the place.
We'd all be invited here, and I would come up from college at Princeton, and we'd have all of us around that one table there in the dining room with a turkey at one end and another turkey at the other end. And the turkey on this end would be cut by my father, and at the other end by Cousin Terry, who called my father Uncle Ezra. And they would have a nice repartee going through the whole dinner. But we'd all be gathered there, and it was just a wonderful time.
Back in the 50s, we would play touch football out on the lawn, and it would always be Yale versus Princeton, which meant the Hudnuts versus the Kilbournes. And then after Grandma gave the place to the city of Holyoke, we went other places to keep the reunions going. And to this day, Allerton Kilbourne and I will toss a football on the front yard of our house down in Chevy Chase, Maryland, just to honor the day and the memory.
And then pies that were left in the house on the shelves all the time. When we first get here, we go in the kitchen or the pantry, and there would be all these pies that had been baked I don't know how many days ahead, but that was it. Everything was there. But you could go on, and then my grandmother always had chocolates for dessert, and desserts always were lots of sugar nowadays.
Every Thanksgiving we had a Yale-Princeton football game. And yes, I was allowed to play, even though Princeton didn't have women, but I always played. And yes, it was very, very enjoyable. The gardener, of course, just about had a fit as we all threw footballs and raced around in his garden, but luckily we never destroyed anything. But it was great fun, and she always appreciated that kind of good fun. And she just was very, very tolerant of young people and children.
Well, we went to South Hadley every Sunday. My children learned to drive over there. And we remember the cow barns. They used to have it was a farm. We still called it the farm. And there was chickens at the first part, and then that was phased out, but they still had the cows. I remember going down to see a calf being born. My father took us down. And but then gradually that part of the property was sold off. But it's wonderful to be there today and to look out and see the ground still opened up, and it's have this music fest, Berkshire group over there. And so it's great, still has music and still being maintained.
We would go over to the orchards for dinner, and it was a very formal occasion, and Grandpa would sit at the head of the table, and he would carve the meat or whatever, but he was very, very nice. I really enjoyed him, although I didn't know him very long or very well. So he was fun.
Well, my grandfather was Joseph. His wife had arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. And so as long as I knew her, she was in a wheelchair. But so she was very slight. I have seen pictures of her from the garden out here with Sterryhurst when she was walking, but that was long before I was born. And but I think family meant a big thing to him. And grandparents, the whole family. And he liked to be with them, very generous. It's amazing going to the museum this morning to think that he collected so many things, and he had so many he had to get a museum to house them all. And it's wonderful the way they're all documented. And he took a lot of pictures. The best picture we have is the one of William and Sarah taking that out here in the porch that he took and developed. And when you think of what the cameras were like in those days. And I know when Aunt Polly died, Elizabeth Skinner, and we all took 3 things from the house. And the picture of William and Sarah were the ones that most people wanted. And so Aunt Polly had them duplicated for everyone. So you have one and we have one. And she was the one I was named after, Sarah Skinner.
I can remember Grandpa. He was a nice guy. But in Christmas and Thanksgiving, he loved to have the biggest tom turkey you've ever seen in your life. Now, what he did was he took the knife, the fork in this hand, and a knife there, and he would start on this turkey. But he was a very, very nervous person. And I mean, the things would be they'd be shaking, and the stuff, the droppings, were all over the rug, and it just took forever. And the kids, my sister and myself particularly, would kind of laugh at him a little bit, but we would certainly remember it, and we did. And of course, now look at me now. They're called the Skinner Shakes, and I can spot just about anybody going down the street who's a Skinner, because they're a little shaky. You can edit that if you want.
I can still hear him carving the turkey. His hand and the knife would clash. The fork and the knife. And we would all have meals together in the dining room.
When he sold the Mount Holyoke to the state, they had a little thing for him. And one of the things that they did was they had a plaque, and it said something about Joseph Allen Skinner, this and that. Very nice. And they had a little flag over the thing, and so they had to have somebody pull the rope up. And as Bill said, I was the jerk that did it. And I did, in fact. And of course, it was, I screwed the whole thing up. And I did it too early, and everybody was a little peeved. I used the word peeved. But anyway, it went, and that's how it went.
Aunt Polly was always special. She would give us treats, and she would take us to Amherst once in a while to go to the 5 and 10 cent store and get stuff. So she was great. She always had knickknacks all over the house. The house is just loaded with stuff, and clocks especially. Well, clocks. My grandfather loved clocks, so he had a lot of them. We have one of his clocks at home.
But it was loud on every hour.
Yeah, it is.
I sort of remember it was like there were so many clocks from like 5 of the hour to 5 after the hour. Something was ringing.
Something is ringing. Yeah, and there was a guy named Mr. Bates. He's still around, who services clocks, and Aunt Polly would say, this was after my grandfather was gone, she would say, well, Mr. Bates came by and he said, he's got to totally rejuvenate this clock, and it's going to take forever. She wasn't very happy with all of the bills that he sent her, but she paid everyone and kept those clocks going. During the summers when we were here, we would often go down to the orchards during the day and sneak into the living room. And there was a dish in there, a big round candy dish with a big lid, heavy lid, glass lid, and if you lifted it off really carefully, you could get the candy without making any noise and nobody knowing about it. So that was a challenge.
Oh, Aunt Polly she was very, very thin, a very nervous person. I don't know how she ever putted, but obviously she putted well. But she was a wonderful person, and she liked. She never had any children because she wasn't married. But she liked children, and I remember going up to Mount Holyoke once with her. And we climbed up the stairs, the cable car stairs, instead of taking the cable car up. And we got up there and we tooled around there for a little bit. And then we came down, and I said, now I was about probably 10. And I said, come on, Aunt Polly, let's not go down those stairs or take the cable, let's just go straight down. And no paths, nothing. Just let's go straight down the mountain. So, and she's a wonderful sport. And we did, in fact, do that. Well, of course, I was about this high, and I could go down pretty fast. But she went down, and she slid, honestly, half of the way down to the place, down the whole mountain. Anyway, we got back to the farm, the orchards, right? And we went upstairs to where her father was, Joseph. And Joseph turned around. He was in the bedroom, and he was looking out the window, and he heard us coming in, and he turned around, and he said, he took one look at her, and he said, what? He said, he didn't say, he said, Caesar. He said, what happened to you? And then Aunt Polly told the story.
He had a favorite expression. He would say, Caesar, whenever anything got unusual happened.
Well, that Caesar word is the closest Grandpa ever swore in his life. You would hear, he was a, God-fearing man, whatever you call it. But he never swore. Caesar was the word he used. So that's that.
But I remember when we were eating dinner at the table, there was a button under the table where she sat, and she would, whenever she wanted something, she'd hit that buzzer, and Catherine better come out right away, or all hell would break loose. So she was pretty stern with respect to Catherine, the help, and being served. But we had to mind our manners, and they always had finger bowls in front of the place settings, and that was kind of funny because we didn't really know what to do with a finger bowl.
I think it's remarkable that he had a flood, took away his entire business, did not take away his house, and he brought the house down by ox cart and by river and rebuilt it here, but B, because he reestablished himself in business here and started, in effect, all over again. It's remarkable courage to do that at the age of 50 and make it the largest silk mill in the whole world under one roof. It's an extraordinary legacy of courage.
There was that commitment. You drive around Holyoke and you see the People's Bank, which he helped found. You see the library, which he helped find. You see the Skinner Memorial Chapel, which was built with inherited money from William Skinner. You see the mills, what's left of them. And he really was a very generous and benevolent person. That came down to my grandmother, who was very generous and benevolent and always very sweet and very generous with us.
Joseph was a very generous benefactor for Mount Holyoke and for Holyoke itself, and he was really widely respected for that quality.
I would gather right here where you and I are sitting every weekday morning with the entire staff of Wistariahurst.
There was never anyone who stayed in the kitchen or out in the garden or anything. They came here for morning prayers. So her life was centered on God.
And she would read from her devotional to us, and then she would either read or say a prayer with us, and we'd have those kinds of staff and family prayers every weekday morning. It was extraordinary.
That was her modus operandi, if you would. That's why she was around, was to help others.
She just sort of took care, and she had a wonderful sense of humor. And she, why? You know, if you went to tease her about something that was sensitive, why? You know, so. But she really was, you know, quite special.
On every name tag, it lists who your ancestor was. So in your mind, you can go down the list on who came from where. Like there are a lot of Joe's people here with whom we do not associate on a regular basis, of course, but whom we're getting to know for the first time. It's just remarkable the number of people you can get to know and get to know where they're coming from, what they do, what their hopes and aspirations are for their lives and for their children's lives.
So I have all of these memories and all of these books and the reunion books and the letters that they wrote, and it's all about principle and leading a good life and being true to yourself and true to the family and the importance of family. And so wouldn't they be happy about today?
Today's a great day. It's just marvelous being here and catching up with relatives you didn't know and catching up with relatives you know, following the lines and trying to connect people through the lineages. Yeah, it's a great time.
Well, the fact that there's so many people that have come from across the country so far to come back, that it was a great organizational job for Bill and Lisa and the committee, but the fact that people wanted to come means a lot. And it would mean a lot to Joseph to know that this was happening.
Well, I would say we've been very impressed by the number of people that wanted to come to reunion together, and the amount of work that went into sort of understanding the relationships between the different members of the family. It's really a very exciting thing. I think it's been marvelous.